Greetings all, it's the Jamaican Tory back with you again with another discussion as we go through the varying aspects of the constitutional reform process. I'm asking everyone to please like, share, and subscribe so that we can get the word out. Now, as I understand it, my last video was a bit lengthy, and that was because the attempt was trying to get as much content out in order to give an introduction as to what this is going to be about. But I can assure you that subsequent videos will be a bit more succinct and to the point. With that said, today's video will be entitled Their President, Not Ours. Now, when I say their president, who do I mean by their? As I stated in my introductory video, is that the model of republic that is being looked at by the government and by the Constitutional Reform Committee is that of a parliamentary republic. And in a parliamentary republic, the president of that republic is the head of state, however, he is not the chief executive. In other words, then, the aim is to replace His Majesty the King and the Governor General with a president. However, the other aspects of the system will not be altered too much. So, in other words, then, they will still be keeping the Westminster model. And while that sounds good in theory, in practice it is a rather dishonest setup. And here's the reason why. As I stated before, the very idea of a republic is that the people are sovereign. Therefore, the head of that republic must be a representative of a sovereign people, which means that he ought to have been chosen by the people. And before anybody accuses me of being hypocritical because the king is not elected, let me point out that the principle behind monarchy is not popular sovereignty. The principle behind monarchy is that the crown is sovereign, and therefore hereditary birthright rules by order of the day. In our case, that hereditary birthright is based on absolute primogeniture, which means that the firstborn, regardless of gender, gets a better claim to the throne, which means that the line of succession falls from King Charles to his eldest son William, to William's eldest son George, to William's daughter Charlotte, to Prince Louis, down to Prince Harry, down to Archie, Lilibet, and down the line it goes. So gender is no longer an issue in the succession. All that matters is who was born first according to the primogeniture rules. So there is no need for an election there, and there is no claim of being a representative there because of the hereditary principle. This is not so in a republic. In a republic, the president of that republic claims to be the representative of the people. Oftentimes, this is true in a presidential system, but in a parliamentary system, this is not so. Anybody who looked at the list of parliamentary systems in the world will see that the president of such a republic is oftentimes not an truly elected official. And yet they want to tell us that this is a meritocracy. I said this before, and I will say it again. This is to increase the power of the political parties. It is not to increase the power of the people. The people will get no say in the matter. And to further explain what I mean, I'm going to contrast the parliamentary republic with the other two types of the republic: presidential, and semi-presidential. In both of these systems, the president who is the head of state, is also the head of the government, which means that the prime minister's post will either be non-existent, as in the United States, or it will be a reduced position, like in France, where they have a prime minister, but the prime minister is a subordinate role to that of the president, because the president is the people's directly elected representative. And because we have a system like that in these countries, their president has to be a directly elected official. And of course, there's always the argument regarding that the US does not have a directly elected president. However, those who made that argument misunderstand the system. So let me explain very briefly. The United States system operates on a principle of federalism, and in the federal model, sovereignty is divided between the states and the federal government. We in Jamaica, we don't have a federal system. The closest we had to that was in the 1950s and 1960s, when we had joined with the rest of the English-speaking Caribbean in a West Indies Federation. But that federation was different from the American model, because in our federation, the crown was the center, similar to the Canadian system. However, because the American federal system has no crown, they have to have another means of choosing the head of state, which is neutrally representative of all the states. So how the system operates is that when that date in November comes up, every state has its own presidential elections. It's a misconception that the presidential election is national. It's not quite so. It's actually on a state level. What happens is that each state simultaneously has a presidential election, and then the candidate that wins the most states wins the most votes in the electoral college. That's how the electoral college system comes in. That would explain why in 2016 Hillary Clinton lost to Donald Trump, even though she won 3 million more votes. It's simply because those 3 million extra votes came mainly from New York and California, 2 states only. But if you were to look at the national scale, Hillary Clinton only won 20 states in the Union, while Trump won 30 states. Well, I believe she won the District of Columbia as well, but I can always recheck that. But the fact still remains that having one more states overall, he won the presidential election. So it's still a representative system. It's just a different kind of representation because of the whole state-federal element. Of course, there are other federal republics as well, such as Germany and India. However, both Germany and India use the parliamentary system, where the prime minister or chancellor in Germany's case would nominate a candidate, and the electoral college would just ratify whoever the prime minister nominates. Now, the system of government that is being proposed in Jamaica is similar to that. And we know this because we heard the Constitutional Reform Committee say over and over again they are looking to something like what Barbados did. And we know that in Barbados, that's the system that they use. Let us not be fooled by the media rhetoric or the narrative. In 2021, I remember quite vividly when the then Governor General, Sandra Mason, was being appointed as President of Barbados. Prime Minister Mia Mottley put her name before the Parliament, and Parliament just said, okay, go ahead. There was no consultation with the people. The people didn't get to choose, one, if they even wanted a republic in the first place, nor did they choose, two, who should lead that republic as president. There was no discussion with the people whatsoever. But yet, when you hear the media narrative, it always says, and I remember very vividly, you can look them up, Barbados elects its first president to replace Queen Elizabeth. That was a lie. Barbados didn't elect anybody. The government chose for them, and the people had no say in the matter. In other words, the president was the government's president, not the people's president. We see this more recently in Trinidad and Tobago when the prime minister nominated a member of his own party. I believe her name is Mrs. Kangaloo. Don't quote me on that. I believe Kangaloo was the name. And when he nominated her for the presidential post, the opposition party was fiercely opposed to having her. However, the prime minister said, you know what? I am the chief executive. I have captain speak. Therefore, I am going to choose her as president, and you are all going to like it. Whether they actually did or did not like it was immaterial. She was sworn in anyway. Now, my thing is, I have nothing personal against Sandra Mason. I have nothing personal against Christine Kangaloo. That's not my point. My point is to be personal. My point is to talk about systems and structures. So this is not about personal. The only personal allegiance I have is an allegiance to King Charles and also former to his mother, the deceased Queen Elizabeth. But when you look at systems, when you look at structures, when you look at the fact that we are being told that a particular system will end up being more democratic, will end up being more representative of the people, will end up being something that reflects the views of the Jamaican people, that to me is a rather disingenuous setup, because we are being told that by having a Republican form government, we will end up becoming more democratic. And as I stated before, republics like to virtue signal about their unique quote-unquote claim to democracy, but this claim doesn't match the stats. Last video, I quoted for you the most democratic countries in the world, and every single one of them were monarchies, including one which is headed by King Charles III. So we know for a fact, based on the numbers, based on the statistics, that having a president will not make us more democratic. It will not make us more sovereign either, but I'll touch on the sovereignty aspect in another video. Today I'm touching on the democracy aspect because I'm trying to show the people of Jamaica that the president is an appointed official, not an elected one. And yet he is being masqueraded as an elected official. And before someone point out to me that the Governor General is an appointed official, that is true. But here's the difference. The Governor General never claims to be an elected representative. He never claims to be representative of a electoral process or of a democratic process. The Governor General's claim is an appointment by the Crown. Therefore, that is an honest setup. A presidential claim by its very nature. And the thing is, a president doesn't have to come out and say, I am elected, not appointed. The very nature of a presidency assumes it to be elected. And when this is not the case, then we have a democracy deficit between what is claimed by the nature of the office and what actually is. So with that said, I would urge you to spread the word. And when the referendum is called, providing there is not a boycott of the referendum, because I know there's a movement for that boycott, but providing there is not a boycott of the referendum, we turn out at the polls and we tell this government, the JLPNP, but they're all the same, we tell them we don't want your politicians' republic. Keep that nonsense ideology to yourself and leave our constitution alone. It is ours and we will keep it as it is.